Okay. Well, I assume all of you have taken the pre-quiz. If not, here's the login stuff. Hope you read your chapter, so it'll be pretty easy. But if you have, good job. Let me introduce this week's first lesson. We're going 2 tonight. This will be the first of 3 sessions now that will be covering information literacy. This week we'll focus mainly on finding and evaluating resources. So, that's what we're going to do. Here's some questions, some food for thought. How do you feel about research? How do you think your students will feel about research? And what is the best method of evaluating information? Those are yours. I would like to hear your input. So you can pause the video now and then answer to my colleagues, but I can't hear you, so I'm going to keep going. My next slide here is my 4th question, and that is, are you informationally literate? The ALA, the American Library Association, defines information literacy as a set of abilities requiring individuals to recognize a need for information, to be able to locate, evaluate, and use effectively that information, the necessary information. So that's there's 4 sub areas there. We're going to go into those tonight. So if you are informationally literate, you should be able to recognize a need, locate your best possible source, evaluate your information, and use it effectively. The first step of those being recognize a need, we'll just dive into. This step is by far the simplest, the most innate of the steps, because it's really only posing a question. Now, whenever you do this daily, you don't see it as recognizing a need. For instance, when your roommate asks you, how cold is it today? You don't say, you have a need for information, let me help you. You see it as a question, and you find the information, usually by Googling it. That's become pretty commonplace today. For instance, this morning in my chem lab, we had to determine the structure of a compound we were doing by infrared electroscopy. And if any of you guys can tell me what that is, I'll give you a high five on Monday. If not, don't worry about it. But we had to find the structure of an ether. And we forgot what it was, so my roommate, being smart, has a smartphone. She Googled it for me. And we found, well, at first we Googled ester, and it was the wrong thing. And then we figured out how to spell it right and found the right structure, which we then recognized as legitimate and went on with our lab. The entire research process there took about 5 minutes. Probably would have taken 2 if we knew how to spell it. But you do this every day. You do this all the time, and it's pretty easy. So to reiterate, the first step in your research process is posing a question. That in itself is evident of a need for information. So with that being said, we're going to move on now to locating information, and Chloe is going to take over. Thank you, Chloe. We're now going to move into evaluating information. Sorry if she already said that, I'm being redundant. Either way, here we go. Once you have found your information after recognizing the need, you have to evaluate it before you can use it. And there's 5 things to establish whenever you're evaluating the reliability and authenticity of a website. Those 5 things are the author, the purpose, the objectivity or bias, the accuracy of the information, and the currency. So if you can find the author, you can then go into his credentials, you can learn more about him, and if he's a crazy hermit who decided to write one day, probably not going to be a good article. But if he's a trusted New York Times editor, probably more than likely a good article. The purpose. If the purpose is to slander and malign someone, then like a tabloid article, probably not good to cite. But if it's to further your knowledge on a subject or topical area, you can go with those. The accuracy depends on verifying it, or its verifiability with other websites. So for instance, if this website says the speed of light is 13 miles an hour on a cold day, And this other websites, and all the other websites say something else. Say it's quintillion kilometers per second, which it probably is. It's close to that. This one is not verifiable, therefore is not accurate. The objectivity and bias goes hand in hand with the purpose. The next thing is the currency. Currencies, it depends on the website. If the last update of a website or an article covering an ongoing stakeout or investigation or police chase, for instance, if the last update was that morning, odds are something's happened between this morning and now. Versus if you're looking at a website discussing the chemical composition of rocks, of sedimentary rocks, and it was last updated 10 years ago, not a lot has changed in the field of geology between now and then. So that one's, it's good to go, but that depends on the subject. Allow me to give you an illustration. So, searching and evaluating websites, it's pretty close to the game of poker. And if you don't know what that is, I'm sorry, it's a fun game. But anyways, when you bluff, which is part of the game, you have a tell. You're trying to hide something, and your body kind of betrays that. Some people will start to sweat more, some people will drag out their words, some people will start to twitch or like wink at people like involuntarily. Leads to some bad situations. But those all are their tells. They let the other players know that they're bluffing. And the objective is not to show it, but everybody has a tell. Let me pose the question, that being, does a website have a tell? Can you tell just by looking at a website, is it reliable? Is there a quick and easy giveaway that you can use it to, and if you're in a hurry, you can use it? My answer to that is, let's see. So, we're going to Google Martin Luther King right now, Martin Luther King Jr., mind you. And the most important sites are on the top. So, let's start there. The first one that pops up is from Wikipedia. And we all know, might not all know why, but we all know that Wikipedia can't be trusted. Let me tell you why. Wikipedia is user-generated. There's not a governing body that's held accountable for the information posted, and I can personally testify to that because back in high school, a wrestling buddy of mine and myself, we made a Wikipedia for our coach. His name was Coach Shrek. He was a real goofy guy, so we just wrote a bunch of stupid stuff on there and posted links to like dumb, satire stuff. Basically, that's what it was. But it was actually posted as an article for about a week. And we cited it on our papers for his class and for our other coaches. Just went crazy citing it so they would all go to it and look at it. And it was a hoot. They all got a kick out of it. But that just goes to show you that Wikipedia being user-generated is not reliable. What about, as far as the tail goes, what about a .org or a .gov? Those are more reliable than .coms, generally. So let's try that. Google martinlutherking.org. Let's see where that takes us. Again, the best site's always at the top. We'll go there. So this one says, a true historical examination. It's got true in the title. It means it's probably true. What do we have? We have rap lyrics. We have why the King holiday should be repealed. A little confusing. We have black invention myths. We have this quote over here, which I'll read for those of you in the back who can't see. It says, that night, and it was posted in a magazine article in 1998. It says, that night, King retired to his room at the Willard Hotel. There, FBI bugs reportedly picked up 14 hours of party chatter, the clinking of glasses and the sounds of illicit sex, including King's cries of, I'm effing for God, and I'm not a Negro tonight. This doesn't seem like a very accurate website for Martin Luther King. But if you'll remember the 5 things to establish for the authenticity of a website, let's start there. The first one being the author, in this case the host. They're interchangeable, like that. Here it is. Hosted by Stormfront, so we'll check them out, see their credentials. They have the stormfront.org. Over here we have White Pride Worldwide. Probably not very sympathetic of Martin Luther King, being that they are very much against him. So that just goes to show you that there's really not a tell of a website, especially .orgs. They're not always trustable. I'm not sure that's a word. Either way, you can't. There's not a tell. There's not a quick, easy way. You really have to establish your author, your purpose, your objectivity and bias, which, as you can tell from Stormfront, there's a lot of bias here. The object and the purpose of writing it was definitely not to honor his memory or to further the knowledge of what he stood for and what he did. The accuracy is, I'm not even going to go into the accuracy or the update. It doesn't matter. Not a good website. So evaluating your information, it's very, very important. It's tantamount to a good report or to a good project. With that being said, we're going to move into using your information effectively. So Tori is going to take over. How would you teach information literacy in your future classes? So it's not, do you know it, or how well you know, but how would you teach it? Because that's why we're here. And I have the Big Six model here. I looked through the models posted on our textbook, and this is by far the one I like it best. It fits most closely to the rest of what we're doing here. But let me leave you with 2 points. And first point being a quote from the chapter. It reads as follows: information literacy forms the basis for lifelong learning. It is common to all disciplines, to all learning environments, and to all levels of education. It enables you as a learner to master content and extend your investigation, become more self-directed, and assume greater control over your own learning. So, kind of important. And again, I'm going to reiterate our 4 steps to the information process, the research process. And those are recognition of a need for info, posing a question, locating info, your best source possible, which is not always the top source if you Google it, evaluating your information, that way you're not running around spewing lies, that's not good. And then finally, the usage of information, be it effectively, ethically, and legally, because you don't want that on your head. And with that, well, I'll go into this and show you why I like it. But for teaching this in the future, this is definitely a good resource. It's not exactly mirrored to how we broke down information literacy tonight, or the research process, but it's got some pros to it. So task definition, recognizing a need, posing a question, that's hand in hand. 2 bleeds over into 1 and 3, so 1 being the question, the recognizing a need, and 3 here being our number 2, the location of information. And that's finding out how you can do it. That's thinking before you actually type and search. 4 is use of information, using information. Synthesis fits into our number 4, our use. And this evaluate here is not the same as ours, but I like it because this evaluation is actually directed at your final project and your process. So at this point, you would look back and say, is this project effective? Meaning, will it work? And was my process efficient? So did it take me 4 days to write a due-day paper or 20 minutes of research to do the same? That's for your future teaching resource. And that is all for tonight.